I'm joined by Jamie Wrenn as we try to preview the weekend's racing. We've got the Betfair Chase, we've got the Christie Chase at Ascot, plus many other races. I did this last week with Daryl Carter. It's going to be a weekly thing. If there's anyone else on the page that's interested in getting involved, then drop me a message. But I can see that not too many of you were as brave as Jamie. So thanks, Jamie, for coming on. How you doing, mate?
Not too bad yourself, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. A bit tired because this is being recorded a little bit later than usual, but it's horse racing, isn't it? So I'm happy to stay up.
Exactly.
So we've got a few questions sent in this week, so we'll just skim through them first, if that's all right.
Perfect, yeah.
Most of it's about Bristol De Mai, the Betfair Chase, and obviously how far does Altior win. So we'll come on to that a little bit later on, but there's a couple of other horses that are mentioned in here. So Jimmy Baker wants to know how far does January Jets win on Thursday. He's a really decent ex-pointer. He fell behind Chantry House, which looks rock solid form. He won his point after that. He goes on Thursday, hopefully, at Thurles. He'll absolutely hack up. Isabel Cooper wants to know at Ascot Saturday, Capeland, 4-1, best bet of the week. So, Jamie, I'm going to pass this to you because it's a handicap. So, fill your boots, mate.
Well, I suppose the last day, Capeland is off the same mark again as he is last week. Was it 2 weekends ago on the Ascot? And he should have been on the race, really, with Diego de Charmel coming across him. People say Diego de Charmel should have been disqualified, but he still kind of jumped the fence in behind the railing, so it looked good enough to me. But I suppose if you rewind back the race again, if he didn't interfere with Capeland will win the race. So Diego de Charmel's gone up £6. Capeland's off the same mark. You do the math, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think, although he obviously did jump the fence, he was inside of the wing, but the ridiculous thing about it is, like you say, I think Capeland would have won it. He interfered with that horse blatantly. He's pushed it through the wing. He should have been disqualified on those grounds as far as I'm concerned, but I suppose that was a debate for another day. We'll do the death of that, but I suppose, fair Capeland will look good. There's been a little bit of money for the last day in that. So he won at Aintree a couple of weekends ago, hacked up, looked like he was welling off his handicap mark, and because there's been a bit of support for him, I guess he hasn't been moved up too far, but not really a race I've looked at. There's another question here from Matt Callard-Weller. This is about another handicap, so it's going to be coming back to you again, Jamie. Lisnagar Oscar's chance in the Grade 3, now he's reverting back to hurdles on soft.
I think this is the good thing of the weekend. If it goes back over hurdles, obviously. His best performance last year was in the Grade 2 novice hurdle at Haydock, won by 10 lengths. It seems to me that I like the long, galloping, flat track. So I'd say, to me, going back over hurdles is off a decent mark. I think it's a good thing of the weekend down the handicap.
Yeah, and I like it. I do quite like the fact that I know you need to give novices chances, so chasers typically, because they might not do so well, but he just wasn't cut out for chasing on that last performance. He didn't seem to jump very well, so I quite like the fact they pulled him back. There have been a couple of other horses in that race that have been backed, though, so you've got odds checker up at the moment. Now I need to find the race. So Umbrigado opened a reasonable price. I think this market was actually priced up about 10 days ago. So Umbrigado has been well backed. Arse Ben's been well backed. There's a few other ones at bigger prices, but Lisnagar Oscar has come in for support. So, yeah, I'd have to agree with that as well. I think he's got to have a massive chance. I think Haydock's ground at the moment was officially moved from soft to good to soft. There's only a few showers in there. We know, obviously, it can turn into a bit of a bog, but I wouldn't say it's going to be any worse than soft at Haydock. So what we'll do is we'll move on to the three feature races. The best one of the weekend, I know it's Altior, Cyrname's the clash, but the Betfair Chase is the best race of the weekend. Sounds like the comments from Tizard's Yard are that Elegant Escape's going to be swerving this, going to be going for another tilt at the Ladbroke Trophy. As I say, Altior's going to be going to take on Cyrname. So we'll have a small field in here, but what are your thoughts on the race?
I suppose the softer the better, I think, for the favourite, Bristol De Mai. I'd be a little bit worried about him if it didn't rain in Haydock for the whole weekend. That I think then it'll bring in Frodon and Lost in Translation. But are Frodon and Lost in Translation not good enough at this stage of their careers? Are they good enough at this moment to be Bristol De Mai around his favourite track?
Yeah, that's it. And he has been so good round Haydock, hasn't he? The thing with him last year was I poo-pooed him because it wasn't soft ground. It was good ground at Haydock last year. They complained about the fences, didn't they, how big they were because horses were making mistakes. And he hacked up last year, and that was a proper field, wasn't it? So yeah. He was 13-2 for the race last year. I think he was about 9-1 even on the day. The fact that he's 6-5 now doesn't really tempt me in for a bit of a price. But I think you're spot on with both Lost in Translation. They're probably not good enough to be beating Bristol De Mai, if we're honest. like I say, Altior's not going to go here. Elegant Escape's going to go for Elaborate Trophy. Bally Optic probably is going to run, but he's not going to be winning the race. Do you reckon, for sort of Lost in Translation and Frodon, in terms of the fact that Frodon was a Ryanair winner, Lost in Translation is potentially going to be a Gold Cup horse, do you think, if we were looking at those two, assuming that Bristol De Mai goes and hacks up, do you reckon that, I mean, my thoughts would be that Lost in Translation will be miles in front of Frodon. What would you say on that?
I suppose Frodon is. They both haven't tried a trip yet, so you have to watch them first if they'll get the trip first. But before Gold Cup, I can't see Frodon staying an extra two furlongs up the hill at Cheltenham.
No,
She will be here. She will have put a lot of Bryony Frost will put a lot of horses in trouble in the Gold Cup on Frodon. But will Lost in Translation and Frodon take each other on at the top in a Gold Cup and set it up for like the closers of Kemboy, Alboom Photo, all the rest of them? Presenting Percy, a good horse. Lost a lot of few pounds on him last year in the Gold Cup. I think the better horses are still in over this side of the Irish Sea when it comes to the Gold Cup.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, and that's the thing with the Betfair Chase. They obviously dangle the carrot for the £1 million bonus. I think Bristol De Mai will probably win this. Bristol De Mai is not going to win in the King George at Kempton. It's just a bit of a shame that there maybe aren't some other bigger guns that might be in there. It's just the case that the trainers, especially someone like Paul Nicholls, that's got things like Cyrname that's going to go in the King George. He's got Clanders over that's going to be in there. Frodon, he's going to be aiming at the King George. He doesn't want to run them all against each other. So you can see why it's the way that it is. But I can't get too excited about Bristol De Mai at the price. But I would love to see him win. He loves it round there, doesn't he? It's his backyard.
Yeah, it's his backyard. It's his best track. He's about a 10-15 pound better horse than in Haydock. The biggest problem, and I agree with you there, Richard, is that there's too many races at this time of year all smudged together. Like, you have the Ascot Chase on the same day as the Betfair. You the race at Down Royal a couple of weeks ago, and then you George in a couple of weeks. There's too many races. There's not where in the flats are all spread out. Where in the jumps, there's just every 2 or 3 weeks there's a good race. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's it. And they're obviously trying to make this race the big attraction that it should be by dangling that £1 million bonus again, but it's not doing the job. So I wonder whether maybe they could move Haydock to maybe a different weekend or do anything like that. Maybe it's the fact that it's at Haydock and everyone's worried that it's going to be a bog. But someone like Willie Mullins, I don't think he's ever sent a horse to Haydock anyway. Maybe if they moved it a weekend later on or a couple of weekends later on, we might be able to attract some of the Irish runners. But as it stands, I think it's going to be a good race because Bristol De Mai is in there. They're all 160 horses that will be running, but it is Bristol De Mai to lose, isn't it? So we'll bang on to the Christie Chase because I'm chomping at the bit to just talk about the Altior Cyrname thing. I know lots of people have already gone over it before, but I'll start off with my stance on it because I like to talk anyway. I know Cyrname is probably, or everyone will say that he's inflated because, how can he be rated £1 higher than Altior? And the fact is, the performance that he put in the last day when he had all those 160 horses behind him and he beat them all so emphatically, he probably does deserve to be where he is rated. My argument's been for quite a while now that Altior is underrated. Altior should be comfortably a 180s horse, and people argue that he's never come up against anyone to sort of prove that rating. This is why this race on Saturday is going to be so good, because when he spanks Cyrname by as far as he wants, hopefully the BHA handicapper doesn't just drop Cyrname. He moves Altior up and sticks him in the 180s. So I understand that it's on Cyrname's backyard, like we said about Bristol De Mai. I know that Cyrname's been so impressive on those last 2 starts, but he hasn't got the greatest record fresh. Nicholls' horses have been needing the run, and although he took on those 160 horses last time, he hasn't faced Altior, has he? So what do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree with you. He's not great fresh. Yeah, I was reading about that today, that he hasn't won a race first time out. But the only thing I will say is that if you watch back what so-called good horses, Mickey Henderson the last day barely beat, I can't think of the name of the horse now off the top of my head, McGinty at Sandown. The Henderson horses need the run. I just have a theory about this race. I just don't even playing it out in my head. If Cyrname gets to the front and goes off like the clapper, will Altior catch him?
And that's the interesting thing about this, because I've been trying to just think of a way of, because obviously we're just trying to predict something that we've got no knowledge about, in the fact that Altior hasn't gone this far. The two haven't raced against each other ever before. It's not as if we're looking at an Altior Min rematch and we know that one's better than the other. The only thing I can sort of liken it to is Vettori when he came over, because he came over with the tilt for the King George. He ran in this particular race, just beat Petit Zig of Paul Nichols. I think he was getting a few pounds that day. On official ratings, Altior should have slammed him. It is probably, I think, because it's 2 miles 5 furlongs. People are thinking, oh, it's closer to 2.5 than it is to 3 miles. But it's going to take some getting the 2 miles 5 furlongs. We know Cyrname does stay. But it's just the fact that there's a couple of videos that have been going around from Seven Barrows of Altior working recently, and Nicky Henderson's constantly saying, isn't he, that he would rather run him in a King Stand than a King George. He's just so quick, all those sorts of things. I think Altior is going to be fully wound up for this. Altior, I personally think is best when he's fresh at the beginning of the season. But I do just worry about the fact that Vettori had obviously won a JLT before he did what he did. He'd won over 2.5 miles in other races before. And as much as we're all assuming that Altior is going to stay, we just don't know it yet. And you'd have to say that Altior is probably the best horse that we've seen over the last sort of 5 or 6 years easy. But someone like a Vettori, if he hadn't have passed away, he could have ended up being easily talked about in the same breath. So that worries me slightly about it. And then obviously going on to the King George, where Vettori did get picked up by Q Card. Don Cossack fell 2 out. He would have easily gone past him. I just wonder what's the point with the Altior thing at the moment. I think he's just going to get beaten the King George. He needs to go and win this first. But I just think Henderson's going to have him so fully wound up that he's just going to hack up on Saturday. And I know Cyrname has been good the last twice. I do really like him, but he's only really changed since they take the hood off. I don't know. I just think this is going to be it's going to be the end of the discussion, isn't it? Either Altior's going to hack up, or if Cyrname beats him, then I don't know what to do.
What you have to do, Richard, is go and see what price Altior is now for the Champion Chase.
Well, I have been doing that, to be fair. So William Hill have got him 5-1 top price. Chacun Poussoir's favourite with most bookmakers now. Obviously, with Deffy winning the slower chase, that sort of franked that run in Ireland. I think Altior for the Champion Chase 5-1 is ludicrous. 2-time champion chaser. Even if he won a King George, they're not going to go for the Gold Cup. They'll bring him back, I think. But it's one of those things, whether stepping him up in distance and messing about with him maybe isn't like the best plan for going back to 2 miles for the Champion Chase. But hey, I personally do think on Saturday they're running off a level weight. Cyrname's going to give him a nice toe into it. I know everyone says about him probably Altior being better left-handed, jumped a little bit out to the left when he ran at Ascot and beat Fox Norton, but Altior just wins, doesn't he?
I'd agree with the jumping. I didn't like his jumping last year. He didn't look right last year to me. Like years ago there. But the thing with Altior, if they're upside each other coming to the second last, Altior looked like he's struggling, but he's just he definitely has I call it an afterburner that he'll burn off a horse then when it comes down to the last 20 and he'll run away from Cyrname. I just can't this weekend. I think Altior is the best horse in training by a country mile. Yeah. But I think Cyrname will win. It's his backyard. I don't know what they're going to do with Altior if he loses and gets beaten well on Saturday is my biggest question. Will they still go for King? Or will they?
Because if he does get beaten, it's probably going to be a bit of a hard race, and the Tingle Creek will probably come too soon for him. So they'll still have to go for the King George. But if he doesn't win this, what's the point? So that's obviously fair, isn't it? The one thing with Cyrname with his afterburn is when I watched these clips back of the handicap that he won, and then he won the Ascot Chase, the Ascot Chase when he beat all those other horses. He was so quick after the last as well. So in my head, I could imagine them two going hell for leather after the last, and maybe Altior winning a head bobber. But I would like to just see Altior just cruise past him at the last, or even I think if he's going to beat Cyrname, he probably needs to get to him before they come to the last. But as they turn in like Vettori did, you need to be in front because it's not as easy to pick up on the Ascot uphill finishes it might look, although Altior does it at Sandown. Right, I'm definitely waffling too much about Altior now. The thing is, when they had the prices up for this maybe a week or a couple of weeks ago, and they were 11 to 10 the pair.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous value on Altior. And I know Nicky Henderson has these weird comments and all that sort of stuff. Altior's getting closer and closer to the price that he should be. He will go off favourite for this. I think as much as some people might poo-poo Altior and all that sort of thing, I think most racing fans just want to see Altior win just to confirm that he is the beast that we think he is. So last thing I'll say about Altior, we'll imagine that he does beat Cyrname in this. We don't know how well he's going to beat him. But before we even think about that, do you think he could win a King George?
Well, I think the winner of the King George probably won't run because he's banned here in Ireland, Kempley. But I don't know what's going to happen there. We're not going to mention names, obviously, of I know we know the racing club in charge of them. But the only thing is that I thought Ken Boyd win the King George. Will Altior win the King George? Who knows? Do you know what I mean? It all depends if he stays on Saturday. Do you know what I mean?
And that's it, and that's the crucial thing, I think. Although they're because it's a speed track round Kempton, I think the way that we saw Valtor finish in that race, where he had to be ridden out to go and beat Petit Zig, that probably more than anything confirmed that he probably didn't really want a 3 mile trip, and then that was evident in the King George. I know he only just got picked by Q Card, but Don Cossack would have beaten him. So that's what I think. Altior could be capable of winning a King George. So that's why I feel like he's got to go and beat Cyrname. Nichol's horses have been needing the run. They've already said this is a prep run for Cyrname to go into Kempton at the King George. So their comments sound much more negative than Nicky Henderson, who keeps saying Altior's I can't believe how quick he is. It's all exciting from Henderson. So, right, I said I was going to stop and I can't stop. Altior's just a weapon. So we'll move on to the Ascot Chase. I reckon that's the next best race on the Saturday. So the Ascot Hurdle, the Coral Hurdle, the race that If the Cap Fits won last year. He was getting £6 that day. There was a front runner that went off like a madman. He stayed on really strong at the end. I think a lot of people were thinking at that point that he was a Stayers Hurdle prospect. Never went to Cheltenham. I know he's going to go there this year, but don't think it's particularly a track that suits him. It's an interesting race because Cool My Lord, he's in there as the favourite. He's been a bit uneasy with the market. He's come out and he's gone back in, but he was really impressive at Sandown. But that's 2 seasons ago now. He's had 2 starts after that when he was favourite to beat Paisley Park at the beginning of the season over 3 miles, was no good. And then they dropped him back to 2 miles at Sandown where he was no good in a handicap there. So this middle trip, 2.5, is probably right for him. He can only go right-handed. He is the highest rated horse in the race and he gets £6 from a few of them. Roxana reopposes If the Cap Fits, so she was close to getting him beat at Aintree, but If the Cap Fits flat on that one. Grand Sonsi will be interesting. It'll be the first time he's stepping up in trip. I think that's a good move for him. And then outside those, I just don't think anything else is of the class of beating it. So from my stance on this, I think If the Cap Fits was maybe a little bit lucky last year to win it, just because they went so quick and he was getting the weight. I think if him and Roxana were running over, or if this race was over 3 miles, he'd wipe the floor with all of them. But with it being over 2.5, I think Roxana, with the fact that she's had that run round Aintree recently, probably would be the one I'd want to side with. And Cool My Lord, he's just going to go off favourite for every race for the foreseeable future, and he just might not be good enough. So I'd want to side with Roxana if I was going to go with anyone here. What are your thoughts on it, mate?
I suppose, yeah, If the Cap Fits needs 3 miles. Looks like he'll jump a fence. It looks like a huge horse. I can't believe I was actually going to back him to win a Supreme Novices there a couple of years ago. He looks slow, but he looks like he has a gear. He might trouble Paisley Park. I thought the one horse that would challenge Paisley Park this year, I'm gutted that Champ has gone over fences. I think he's in the air hurdle hands down. I suppose after that, yeah, Roxana with the run will probably win, all right. Roxana seems to me a lucky horse. Like Benny Didio would have won the Mares Hurdle by 10 lengths, and we wouldn't even be talking about Roxana in a Grade 2 hurdle.
And that's it, yeah.
But I think she'll win. I agree with you there. I think she'll win because she's getting the weight. If the Cap Fits is not getting the £6 this year, and I just don't like Paul My Lord, he just needs to go right-handed, and he's better off being top weight with a £7 claimer and a handicap around Sandown.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. The nuts thing about it, though, is from just a pure numbers point of view, Roxana's rated 151, and she's only getting £1 from Cool My Lord, who's rated 160. So there's obviously like an £8 difference in there. But I guess we're probably both of the thought process that Cool My Lord isn't a 160 horse, is he?
No, definitely not. No, he's just a 160 horse on his Sandown form. If he was anywhere else, you wouldn't call him a 160 horse at all. He just won good handicaps. And then over 3 miles last year, like, what's that race? There's a race, was it the Saturday of the old Laverick Hurdle Day at Ascot, the Saturday before the same season, Boxing Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll run in that, and he'll be probably second favourite for that as well. And sure, he'll probably bomb out in that as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Because that's where I guess If the Cap Fits will come back as well. That'll be the long walk. That'll be over 3 miles. That's where If the Cap Fits should really shine. And although I'm sure Harry Fry's got him fit for this, as far as I'm concerned, this is just a spin before he goes onto the long walk. He'll have a run in the Cleve Hurdle winning, then he'll go for the stairs. So maybe Roxana, the Skeltons have looked at this as an opportunity to go in there. Grand Sonsi is interested in stepping up in trip, but he's not getting any weight from anyone. So good to see that we agree on that one. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, they're probably the feature races of the Saturday. There's loads of racing over in these shores on Friday and Saturday. We've got Ascot. Then Ireland's got some decent racing on the Saturday and the Sunday. So I reckon we'll skim through. We'll go through a few of the novice chases. I'll mention some of the races that I've got a bit of an eye in for, and then we'll see how long it takes us to get through them. The novice hurdlers, there's probably about the same amount of races on there, but we've got the Monksfield novice hurdle in Ireland as well on the Sunday, so that's one I'm quite keen to see who gets fully declared in that. And then there are a couple of bumpers, but only the Ascot one probably deserves a full talk about. So for the novice chases, it's actually interesting because tomorrow at Warwick, there's a pretty decent novices chase. We've got Lisp of Alan King's going in there. Mr. Fish is in there. Not that Fusay that was behind our Dancer Getaway Trump. Torpedo of Nigel Twiston Davies. So he's had those 2 hurdle starts. Ran really well at Cheltenham in the Masterson's hurdle, where everyone was slating his ride a little bit, saying he should have won it. So he's really interesting going over the fences. He gets the 4-year-old allowance. But I suppose that's a Thursday. I've already done a bit of a write-up on there, so we won't waste time on that. Friday at Ascot is one that looks like it's going to be a decent race. So the Steel and Plate Novices Chase that was scheduled at Cheltenham on the Friday, obviously because that was abandoned, that got cancelled. There were 4 runners entered for that, and 2 of those were Nicky Henderson's Angel's Breath and Birchdale. It looks like those 2 are going to face off against each other again on the Friday. First Flow for Kim Bailey, that's just got the 1 entry, so I suspect that comes here. Cateson for Tom Lacey, that's got an entry in a handicap at Haydock over hurdles, so I suspect he's probably in need of the run. And then, as I mentioned about Torpedo, he's already going to run tomorrow, as is Mr. Fisher. So I reckon it'll probably be a smallish field. Angel's Breath and Birchdale were 2 that I'm really, really excited to see over fences. More so for Birchdale, I think. Nicky Henderson admitted that he probably made a mistake running him in the Albert Bartlett. He thinks he got it the wrong way around with him and Champ. I think Birchdale just looks like he could be an absolute beast. And I think he's 20 to 1 or 25 to 1 for any race at Cheltenham. I think he'll be aimed towards the JLT. I know JP McManus has got loads of horses in every division, but I think Birchdale's a proper horse. Angel's Breath is obviously a really nice animal as well. So I think those 2 will have it in there. It's interesting that Henderson's just entered them on Friday. They were going to run against each other. They're going to run against each other at Ascot. I know there's not too many options for him to go in there, but I guess he must be bullish about both, and they both deserve to take their chance in there. So I'll let you go through that for the fact that there's probably only going to be a small field in there. First Flow was behind Somerville Boy the last day. He needs to significantly step up for me. But this Angel's Breath and Birchdale, they are both only 5-year-olds. So what's your thoughts on the pair?
I suppose that this time last year, coming into December, everyone thought Angel's Breath, this is the next coming Nicky Henderson. This is one of the best horses I ever trained. And all of a sudden then, boom, no good.
Yeah.
Is he as good as you think he is? If you look back, if you see on YouTube of his point to point in Ireland, right, you thought, look at him. It was in an undulating track in Ireland. I can't remember the name of the point to point place. But he looked like he had speed, the burn, he has everything, right? But if you look back, I watched the Albert Bartlett actually the last day. I was going through it again and going through horses for the year. And just coming down after the second last in the Albert Bartlett, first day was on the bridle. You thought, this is over, right? And he just stopped. So I think in my head that he will go for the JLT. But the problem is with Birchdale going for the JLT, is he going to beat the likes of Samcro? That could be a bad word now. That could be a bad word for everyone, Samcro. And Lorena. Will that horse beat Samcro or Lorena in a JLT?
It is hard to say, isn't it?
Not for me. I think Samcro will win, but I'll keep saying, if we do another one of these videos, I'll keep saying to you in a couple of weeks' time, Samcro is going to win the JLT. But I think when I heard a ludicrous thing that Willie Munn said the last day, that Mellon needs to step up and trip. Hardly. Is he going to switch Mellon to the JLT and put Lorena in the Arkle? I can't see that happening. But going back to your point, Angel's Breath has to prove me wrong. But Birchdale looks a good horse, but is it good enough to beat the horses in Ireland? I keep coming back. I know I'm from Ireland. I'm saying that.
Yeah,
but are they going to beat the Irish horses? Nicky Henderson horses, but that Birchdale looks a good horse. But I'm still more interested in Angel's Breath. I backed them anti-post last year for the Supreme. I backed Classical Dream on the day to save my arse, but I put that way, yeah. But I have to see Angel's Breath go see it. No, he did win an Ascot last year, but people have to remember, like, he only jumped 4 hurdles at Ascot, and then he was favourite for the Supreme, so it was ludicrous.
Yeah, it really was with it. And then obviously there was the issue with the flu vaccinations and all those sort of things. So he missed his intended target, and then he had to run at Kempton, and then he was beat by Southfield Stone, and we forgave him that because of the flu stuff. But he lined up, didn't he? And he must have been there to do his justice. And you get things like Birkdale as well would have been caught up in that. So maybe the fact that he blew up after, there could be a few question marks that we could put around Henderson's horses, and we could blame it on that. To go back to the Lorena thing, she's entered in a mare's chase. She's potentially up against Manella Indo on Saturday, but that's not going to happen. She won't run in that. She'll run in the mare's chase. Salsarette is in there as well, but they all look naff. I think the main thing with Lorena last year was obviously she travelled so well in the Champion Hurdle. She looked like she was going to be there or thereabouts, but that was her first race in proper open company. The rest of the time it's been against the girls. That's what I just worry about for her this season. And I don't know. I would imagine I'd like to see Menon and Arkle. I think that's the best place to go for him. But the fact that Willie Mullins is talking about stepping up in trip, I've just got this horrible feeling that he's going to stick Lorena as his Arkle main hope. But I don't know. There's a nice chase on Sunday as well. I think it's Sunday at Navan where Getterbird's entered in there. No, it's not Getterbird. It's another one. It's Brecon, and then there's a couple of other horses in there. I'll come on to that in a bit. But that's the race that Willie Mullins has won in the past with the likes of Min, Vitor. I think Album 30 won that as well. So they're horses that can go either way. But when I looked at those entries that Willie Mullins has put in there, none of them scream out that they're going to be winning novice chases at the festival. So he might be light-handed this year, but we'll have to see. So for the race on Saturday then, if we were going to have to just go gung-ho, it's over 2 mile free. We know Angel's Breath won round Ascot. We think Birchdale's quite good. Of the pairs, you think Birchdale will hack up?
I'm hoping Angel's Breath does, but I think Birchdale will, yeah.
Nice, I like that. So there was another one. There's a graduation chase, I think, at Haydock. I don't know if I've got the time of that one on here. 150. We'll just squeeze over that. Sorry, I'm not as prepared as I probably should be. So we'll just skim through the rest of the chases. We touched on the Lorena one where Manella Indo is going to run there. That's Saturday at Gowran Park. There's the racing over in England on Sunday isn't the greatest, but the only real race I'm interested in is Danny Whizbang for Paul Nichols. He's a horse that's looked like he has been waiting to jump a fence. He's going to run in a novices chase at Exeter, or at least he's entered. I know Henderson's horses have been needing the run, but I'd be expecting reasonable things from him this season. So the graduation chase at Haydock looks a pretty decent one, although it's not. I don't think we're going to have festival clues in this one particularly. Midnight Shadow's in there. Ran okay-ish behind Brewing Up a Storm and Good Boy Bobby. It fell the last day when it probably would have been there or thereabouts. Jarvis Plate's in there that obviously beat Reserve Tank at Chepstow. The Hollow Ginger's in there. He gets away without carrying a penalty, the Hollow Gins, even though he's won a chase. So that's the only reason why he might be a little bit interested in. And obviously if the ground went slow, but I think the market's probably got this one about right. It looks like Midnight Shadow and Jarvis Plate are about joint favourites. I think most bookies have probably got Midnight Shadow as the favourite. I think Jarvis Plate stepping up. This is 2 miles, 5.5 hurdles. So I think he's a horse that does look like he needs to step up in trip. But Midnight Shadow, I know he hasn't won over fences yet, but he looks like he could be a nice prospect. Have you had a look at this or any thoughts on it?
I didn't really look at it. I seen the prices. I suppose Midnight Shadow looks like he'll win, but if you look at Jarvis Plate, if you're going looking back at his form and he beat Reserve Tank at Chepstow, he should win really. Like another horse, that's another, like we're talking about the JLT all night. That's another horse for the JLT, Reserve Tank. Robbie Power keeps saying Reserve Tank needs good ground. So if it's good ground in the festival, he has to come into reckoning as well.
Yeah.
Well, on that form, you'd have to go with Jarvis Plate, yeah. Even though Midnight Shadow apparently is untapped potential. But I go with Jarvis Plate. He's the more solid option.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to, because we're looking at Midnight Shadow does get £7, but the reality is Jarvis Plate has won a chase race, whereas Midnight Shadow didn't win, and then he fell, and you don't really want to be getting stuck into horses. When you look at the prices, the bookies have probably got it right, but I don't think either of those are really going to tempt anyone to be getting stuck into them. The chase at Sunday at Navan, we should have done this as the days as opposed to me keep moving about, but never mind. We've started, so we'll finish. It's the beginner's chase. It's the the EBF Beginners Chase at Navan. So this is the one where I think I've got something on here that what's Willie Mullins sent in before. So yeah, Album Photo, Min, Duvan and Valtor have won this. So we know that Valtor obviously went and ran in the JLT. We know Album Photo went and ran in an RSA. Obviously then went and won a Gold Cup. Min was a 2 miler. Duvan was 2 miles. It doesn't look the deepest of renewals, to be honest. Brace yourself for Noel Meads is coming back from, well, it'll be over a year since his last run. He's got some reasonable form in there, and I think he looks like he will be a decent chaser. Breacon's the one for Willie Mullins. Now, that horse looked okay last season. It won a maiden hurdle, but it's not worked out very well, the form from that. Sent off favourite at Punchestown when Gardens of Babylon won. It just didn't look like it was right that day. They wore a hood that time, so whether that just got in its head and wound it up a little bit, I don't know. But he potentially could be an okay chaser. Triplicate's in there that had some. It's got some good place performances, and then there's a couple in there from Noel Mead. Red Jack that's never really lived up to anything. That had some fair bumper form, and then there's Valdew that it won a couple of nice bumpers. I actually thought he had a chance in the Leopardstown Grade 1. There's the race that Classical Dream won. He came last in the end. He was miles behind. And then he's not really done anything since he was hurdling. He has won once. So maybe he's won. He's an ex-pointer. He won over a point. He fed in a point that I think he was going quite well in. So potentially the fences will be the making of him. As I say, the role of one of recent runners that Willie Mullins have sent in there, we've got some proper horses. Have you had a chance to look at this one? Is there anything in there that you think might be able to follow in any of their footsteps?
It doesn't look like it really. I remember that race actually. The Brecon won this Limerick, and like he was 30 lengths clear at the far corner of Limerick Racecourse, and there was nor to be seen. He looks like an absolute lunatic of a horse. He tried the same at Punchestown, but like if you look at the form of the Punchestown race, Gardens Babylon won, but look who was second, and it was Notebook. So that Notebook's gone on to win 2 good chases, like one there to weekend at Punchestown. But I kind of agree with you. I had that theory about Valdew as well behind Classical Dream that day. I think he might be the more solid option compared to that Brecon. Because that Brecon, you'll see, Brecon either win by 30 lengths or he'll fall, or Valdew will come to pick up the pieces late. But I guarantee you, if you go up the top around the corner of Navan, Brecon will be 20 lengths clear. So it's up to you then if you want to back it then.
Yeah, and that's the thing with him. He had no respect for any of his hurdles. I know that's a comment that gets thrown about quite a lot, but quite literally, he saw the hurdle and just wanted to smash it back into the ground. Like you say, he's a bit of a head case. They put the hood on. If anything, that just made him worse. It's wrong, but I do quite like horses like that have clearly got something a bit screwed with them because they've just got so much ability, and if ever they could tap into it, it might come out. He is only a 5-year-old, so maybe he's got a chance. Brace yourself, the one that I mentioned before. So he's as an okay bumper run behind Getaway John. He beat Defi Ballerna maiden hurdle. He's another one that was like an okay point-to-point horse. He won his first bumper by absolute miles. He's clearly had his issues because he doesn't run very often, but potentially looks like he could be one that might run a bit of a race. But the only one I can imagine that could end up being something special could be that Brecon if he ever gets his head screwed on. But I don't know. I wouldn't want to be backing him on Sunday. I'd want to be watching him. And even if he went and hacked up, I wouldn't really be keen to be rushing in after. I'd want to see him run a couple of times and see if he settled himself down a little bit. But it still potentially could work out as quite a nice race. There's no other novice chases I think that have really, or that are even going to be contested over the weekend. So we'll skim on to some of the novice hurdles. Is there any other novice hurdles over the weekend? There's a couple at Ascot as well on the Friday, but is there any of them that particularly took your attention?
I suppose, yeah, it's what you said there, Richard, earlier about the Monksfield. It all depends who's going to turn up in it. You can't really see Abracababras go over 2.5 miles. I think there's 6 shooters in there, I think, isn't he? I think 6 shooters in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you like 6 shooter, yeah. No, I can't see Abracababras running, and I can't see Envoy Allen running, so there has to be 6 shooter, like, you know. I don't have much opinion on 6 shooter now. You saw in the bumper on Punchestown on Saturday how good what I think is a future takeover from Alboom Photo, the big getaway.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't have much opinion on 6 shooter because to me, Gordon Elliott has the winner of the Supreme, and he has the winner of the Ballymore, and Philip Hobbs is the winner of the Albert Bartlett. So after that, the rest of them can, take a walk, as I put it to.
Yeah, it could be true. So there is the one other one that hasn't been mentioned there is Fury Road of Gordon Elliott's. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. Abacadabras won't run in this. I think him and Envoy Elan will both run in the Royal Bond. He's pretty much confirmed that Envoy Elan won't run in this, but he didn't make a comment on Abacadabras. So I know Gigginstown like to win this race. They won it with Samcro 2 years ago. The word, we can't say that too often. We got Death Duty the year before they won it with. So it tends to lend itself for...
Don Cossack won it as well. I think it is. Don Cossack won it.
Yeah, might have done a few years before, yeah. So I think because Fury Road was really impressive. He ran, his maiden hurdle was over 2 miles 6. I really like Fury Road. I think he looks like he could be a very, very special horse. The reason I got stuck into him when he ran in his maiden hurdle was because of the line behind Six Shooter. Six Shooter will still get his weight for age allowance, but I think the terms that Fury Road met him on that day, I think he was given £7 to Six Shooter. So he probably won't have to give quite as much. I do think Six Shooter looks a nice horse. The thing I was really keen about with that Punchestown bumper was the horses that were in behind. So something like you've already said, the Big Getaway looks, well, he was a massive horse compared to Six Shooter, but he looks a serious prospect. Fury Road, I thought he looked like a serious prospect. But the fact that Six Shooter looked like he was beat as they came in the home straight, managed to rally, and I know he had a claimer on board. I know he was giving away, or he was getting some weight. But the fact that he's only a 4-year-old and he's unbeaten, I feel like he might be getting sort of under the radar a little bit. And there's lots of other bits of his form as well. So there was Soviet Pimpernel that was in behind, ran so well in the Masters hurdle. We almost got a touch on that at 33s. Dew Cup went and won at the weekend. Obviously, the Big Getaway's gone and won. Obviously, Fury Road's gone and won. Six Shooter himself's gone and won. So I think if the ones line up that I think they will, or everything else, it doesn't even deserve a mention of this. But if Fury Road and Six Shooter both run in this, and because I think Gigginstown like to win the race, they probably will both run. Fury Road will be, I reckon, the short price favourite for this, and it might just be the case that, well, I'll back Six Shooter if he's 2-1 or bigger, and I reckon we might just about get that price. The thing with Fury Road is I do think probably he'll be the better horse longer term, and maybe Six Shooter just got it on the terms of that bumper, but those two going against each other, if one of them does go and absolutely hack up in the Monksfield on Sunday, then I think we're talking about a serious horse.
The only thing, do you not think Fury Road looks slow? He looks a future. He looks a future Tiger Road to me. He looks a 4-miler out and out. Like, it took so long to go in the last day in Thurles. With Six Shooter, had too many gears for him. Now, I know Nevin's a dip uphill climb to the finish, but I think it'll be too short for Fury Road. So I definitely go with you there. I think Six Shooter will win.
Yeah, and that's it. But I really do think because of the fact that Fury Road was such an emphatic winner, and the fact that he's sort of 14-1, 15-1, or 16-1 for an Albert Bartlett, Six Shooters 33 for most of the novice hurdles. I think the bookies will be probably lazy in this, and I reckon they'll stick Fury Road as a favourite in this. And we might get a bit of value by backing Six Shooter. But it's a great race to watch, and I'm just really interested to see how they go against each other, because in my mind, I think that Fury Road is a better horse than Six Shooter, and he might beat him on Sunday in the Monksfield. In my heart, I want Six Shooter to wipe the floor with him and just turn into this absolute aeroplane. But although it's only going to be a small field, like we say, Envoy Elan and Abracadabras probably aren't going to run in there, but it still looks like it could be quite a good race.
Yeah, it could be, definitely. But I suppose the way to look at that is that, as I said to you, Gordon Elliott looks like has all the ammunition in the world this year, and I suppose this is another sidetrack to the main hopes for the Cheltenham Festival. But they're good horses, but they're probably going to be chasers down the line. Gigginstown prefer chasers, but
absolutely
can't see any horse beating that Cheltenham bumper this year. From last year, right? You look at it already. Envoy Elan looks a machine. Blue Sari looked like good, but looked like it was too far for Blue Sari on Saturday. Yeah. And then you have Time Hill, who I think needs 3 miles now. You have Arco Brabbers. They've all won, and they all look really good horses. So, like, that bumper looked well. Everyone's saying, it was not enough numbers in the bumper last year, but I think the less you have in the bumper, the better the race is.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with that. And obviously, that is red hot form. That bumper form from last year. The interesting thing with the fact that Gordon Elliott's got the winner of every single race at Cheltenham at the moment it's typical of this time of year, isn't it? He gets his big guns out a little bit earlier. We haven't probably seen anything of Willie Mullins' best prospects for any of the novice hurdles yet. So that's why the next few weeks are really interesting for me to see which horses he's sticking out. You probably have to think the ones that have been coming out over the last week or maybe the next week as well are sort of lower down the pecking order. But once it gets around Christmas time and he gets those entries out and we get to see some of these horses going in grade ones, taking on the likes of Andy Dufresne's and taking on Envoy Elan, that will really be the point where we can see just how good they are, I think. But yeah, at the moment, Gordon Elliott does look to have a very strong hand. And you really, for especially a horse like Envoy Elan, you just struggle to think or try and rack your brains and imagine a horse that could even go anywhere near him. The only one I thought probably could was Malone Road, and obviously he's knocked his knee. So we all knew that was a potential to happen, because if you knock your knee before you go into a bumper and you can't turn up there, then there's a chance you're going to get niggles and niggles and niggles after. But I was encouraged when the Cheveley Park stud put a video up from Gordon Elliott, so Malone Road was leading Envoy Elan in a piece of work. So I got a bit excited about that. And then Envoy Elan's obviously giving him a good kick in, isn't he? And decided to say, I'm going to win at the festival, not you. But you're right, that bumper does look absolute fire. So talking about Willie Mullins, he's got a couple of entries in the 12:30, the maiden hurdle at Navan on Sunday as well. That's a 2.5 mile race. Francine is a Rich Reekie horse. So we remember the days when they had all the firepower and they were just smashing out horses and winners left, right and centre. They don't seem to be doing quite the same at the minute. This doesn't look a particularly vintage race either, to be honest. I've always been really keen that if we're thinking about horses for something like a Supreme, then none of them ever start over 2.5 miles. The better 2.5 mile races have probably already started this year, the ones that Envoy Elan and Andy Dufresne have gone into. So I don't really think there's much in that maiden hurdle really that looks of any interest at the first at Navan. Is there anything you've picked up in there?
It was the same horse you said there's the only thing that stood out was that Francine, but I looked at his form. It wouldn't be for me. Watching brief, really. I think Richie said at the start of the year that he needed 17 novice hurdlers, but I can't name one that's any good at the moment. Anyway, I was very disappointed with Dramatic Park on Sunday. John Snow.
Yeah.
But the only thing to look at is that the horse that won Front View was absolutely hammered by Blue Sari. So.
Oh yeah, Envoy Elan wasn't it the time before? Yeah.
Yeah. So front view or something like that, or something is the name of the horse. But John Snow ran at Cork on Sunday, and I thought he was poor. Now he could come on from the run, but apparently all the word in the Willie Mullins yard, I was told that this Fly Smart is the one, and I'm waiting for it to come out and see how good. Then is Fly Smart good enough to take on Envoy Elan and Blue Sari? Who knows?
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? So, like I said, I don't think he's chucked out any of his best ones yet. It doesn't look like from the entries any of his top horses are going to go out this weekend. There is a horse entered up on Saturday at Gowran in a 2 mile novice hurdle. So 6 Shooter does hold an entry in there as well. I don't know why they drop him back from 2.5 miles to 2 mile, but he's in there anyway. Franco Deport for Willie Mullins. There's been a few things on some forums, people talking about him being something special. He beat Nicky Henderson horse, now Fred, by 13 lengths in France. Fred's entered up over the weekend as well to run again. He wasn't very good at Cheltenham. He beat a couple of horses that have also run in Ireland, and they've been pretty naff since. So he's interesting enough for the fact that he's Willie Mullins. He's an ex-French horse, but I don't know. I'd rather wait and see what he does more than anything. There is one for Elizabeth Doyle in there, Cade Boy. So that's a JP horse. Was really impressive in a bumper last March. It ran it was a maiden hurdle at Wexford, and I wasn't really convinced it should have been the price that it was, but it won it nice enough. I just don't think that looks particularly an interesting novice hurdle. So what we'll do is we'll skim back to the English action, because I do think, I don't know whether these are going to be the best hurdlers we're going to see, but it's interesting on the Friday. The first 3 races at Ascot on the Friday are always the ones I'm interested in. We've obviously got that chase in the first place. Then there's a maiden hurdle, which is around about 2.5 miles. That horse Fred that I've just touched on there, that was in front of that Willie Mullins horse, he's entered up here. He's got a couple of entries. There's a horse called Prince Llewellyn that's in here that was behind getting the queue when he ran in that bumper at Newbury, the last ride from Noel Feely. He looks like he could be quite good for Kim Bailey. There's Papa Tango Charlie for John Joe O'Neill. I don't know what, 400 and something thousand pounds they paid for it. and then it was. I mean, I'm trying to think of a polite word to say it, but it was shit, wasn't it, at Worcester? Drifted, beaten nearly 7 lengths. Obviously, was just there for a spin, and then there was another one in here that I looked at that I thought was interesting, but I don't know if it's gone. Oh, Grand Mogul for Nicky Henderson. But the few horses that I have mentioned there, I don't think any of them are going to be absolute worldies, but we need to try and pick out some bets for the weekend, I think. So this Prince Llewellyn has got 2 options this weekend now. It's got the option of this maiden hurdle on the Friday, and then it's also entered in the novices hurdle on the Saturday. Now, the novices hurdle is going to be the better class of race. Kim Bailey's got, I think he sponsors the 3rd race at Ascot. He's had some horses coming out this week that seem to be running okay. I think he's going to be fired up for the weekend. So Prince Llewellyn in that 2.5 miler, I think looks quite interesting. Nicky Henderson's got loads of horses entered up, so he's definitely going to have a runner in there. I think that Grand Mogul will probably be the one that's the best of those. That was with Gordon Elliott, though. So if Gordon Elliott's letting a horse go, even if it's sold to a different owner, that does beg a question of, is it really that good? Nichols has got a couple that are entered in here. They both had a run, but neither of them look anything special. So, yeah, I think it looks an okay-ish race. Papa Charlie Tango would be one that I'm really interested to see go now he's heard him, just given the price tag. But I'd be very interested in this Prince Llewellyn of Kim Bailey's if it ran. Is it a race you've looked at?
Not really, no, to be honest, Richard. But yeah, I suppose the form line would get into queue. It looked an absolute monster last year. I actually was going to back him to win the Cheltenham bumper, but he never ran. But I suppose a lot of these novice hurdles at Ascot, I don't know, I bought into them years ago and say, oh, if you won at Ascot, you have a great chance at Cheltenham. But I was looking through some of them, not really stood out off the page at the moment. You know what I mean? More towards just before Christmas, you nearly start to look at the Ascot race and all the novice hurdles there and see what's coming out in the English horses. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. No, I completely agree. So we don't know, because some of these horses might turn out to be absolute aeroplanes, but off the first look of them, none of them look that amazing. But I think that Prince Llewellyn, I reckon he'll go there on the Friday. But it's always worth seeing what the bookies first price him up at, but we might get a chance in that. So I touched on Kim Bailey sponsors a race. He sponsors the introductory hurdle, the race after this. So I always find it interesting when a trainer sponsors a race, and especially when they chuck a few entries in there. He's got Adjourned entered in this, which was entered in the race before, so I suspect Adjourned will come here. He's also got a horse, Mr. Grey Sky, that's entered up to come in the race. So he's probably, for me, the preference of the 2 runners that he might have in here. It won 2 bumpers at Haydock. Now, there is a novices hurdle that he could have been entered up at in Haydock, but he's opted to come here. He hasn't even got the entry at Haydock, so he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's clearly going to run here. It wouldn't look like his bumper form is anything that amazing, but I just think the fact that Kim Bailey sponsors the race and this horse is the only one that's entered here. When I spoke earlier about the novice chases, and there was only one horse I was interested in on Sunday, which was Danny Whizbang. That horse this horse, Mr. Grey Sky, is a half brother to Danny Whizbang. So I know Danny Whizbang's going to be a better chaser. The same might be true of this horse, but I just think he looks interesting enough. Master Debonair's in here, so that's the horse that beat Time Hill at Cheltenham, and then Lord knows what happens to it after. Paul Nicholls has got a JP Nimex de Julie that hasn't run for God knows how long, and all these horses seem to need the run. Tom Lacey's horse, Glory and Fortune. Now, he'll be carrying a penalty because he has won a race, but he looks like he could be something half decent. He was good in the listed bumper at Cheltenham. I think Tom Lacey had a few options of horses that he could have run in that. Sent this one there and he duly obliged, and then he won a novice hurdle at Huntingdon. The only thing I worry about Tom Lacey this season is I don't think his yard are anywhere near as good as they probably should be, and I don't even think it's a form thing anymore. I've just lots of his horses that I've seen run over the season, I don't particularly do ratings or anything like that, but I reckon most of his horses are running below their best. I know he's had a couple of winners in there. When Sebastopol won his handicap hurdle, he was just completely thrown in anyway after the kissing spine seemed to be sorted. But this Glory and Fortune is one of those horses that has come out and it's won. So I don't know. I think that he could be quite a nice horse. Again, is it a race you've had a look at?
Not really. I going back actually to Tom Lacey. I kind of agree with you. He overhypes these horses and says, "Oh, this horse is good." And this. You mentioned that Sebastopol. what happened to him. He run at Huntington right last week as well, and he was stuffed. I mean, like, there's something wrong there at the moment. So, and plus, you say Glorian Fortune has to carry a penalty, and you say Kim Bailey horse is in there and has probably no penalty. I wouldn't be backing a horse with a penalty in an introductory hurdle with a yard that had. I don't know. I don't rate Tom Lacey, to be honest. I might be wrong. Do you know what I mean? But at the moment, you can't really say his horses are going well.
Yeah, and I think he had a really good season last year. I do think he is a pretty decent judge. He's good at producing some of those point-to-point horses, but it is just more the longevity of him, isn't it? He gets a couple of good bumper wins out of them. Maybe that's his model. He wants to just get them there and maybe sell them on. But yeah, there's something that, well, I don't know what it is, but as far as I'm concerned, there's something not right with the yard this year. One horse that I haven't mentioned in here that definitely deserves a mention is Redford Road. There's an ex-point horse, Kilteely Briggs, that ran for Jamie Snowden. It ran on its bumper. The front three all looked like they were quite nice prospects. Redford Road was the one that won that day. I backed Kilteely Briggs the next time he ran when he stepped up in trip. Got beaten ahead, I think, 9-4 shot. Missed this Redford Road that ran at the beginning of November. He was sent off 9-2 and he went and won his race over 2.5 miles. I think that form could be half decent. I think Kilteely Briggs is declared to run tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to see what he does. But because he is a winner of a race and he wasn't that convincing, here's another one that will carry the penalty. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the market. I would just think that Prince Llewellyn in the race before could be interested to see the prices, and I think maybe that Mr. Grey Sky as well. Well, I did say there was the handicap hurdle at Haydock on the Saturday, so I'll quickly go into that because that's a listed novices hurdle. So that's again where I'm touching on with that horse. It's just strange to me that he's won its 2 bumper races at Haydock. Why he's not run it in there? It obviously wants a bit of a trip, and like I say, could be in the half brother to Danny Whizbang. Maybe it's just a case he wants a trip and maybe he wants a fence and he might not be good enough for it. But the listed hurdle at Haydock on Saturday, I'm sure you would have had a look at this one. This one does look a bit better than the other couple of races I mentioned. Balinska, he beat Humble Hero the last day when Humble Hero fell, but he had him held. He looks like a serious horse. Glory and Fortune's in here again, but we've touched on him already. Redford Road's in here again, which I've just touched on previously. Nigel Twiston Davis has obviously got him, but he's got Sam Twiston Davis booked to ride Tournament Parade at Haydock on the Saturday. So again, with Redford Road probably going somewhere else and not being the stables, like first jockey on there, gives you a bit of a question mark about him. But the Banner King Rebel's in here. He'd be another one that's really interesting for me. I went to Alan King's yard a couple of years ago, and that's where I saw Harambe, saw the likes of Hostile, Valdez's little brother. And there was a good mention for Harambe that he should have won his bumper he rode in the time before that, and that he was going to win his next bumper. Had a few quid on him. He bumped into the Banner King Rebel that day, and at the time I was fuming. I thought the jockey didn't put him in quick enough, all those sorts of things. But to see what the Banner King Rebel's come out and done since, he looks like he actually is a half decent horse. Fred's entered in there again. There's an owners group horse in there, Cal Verdouge. Don't think there's too much in with that, but yeah, I would probably like to think at this point, depends how they price it up, obviously, but I would think of all the ones that I've mentioned, Balinska would be the one that I'd be looking to steam into.
I know what you're saying, right, about the Banner King Rebel, but I'm just actually looking at it here. Red Force 1 is entered here. He was supposed to run in a Great Wood 2, wasn't he?
Which one's that? The Red Force 1 was,
yeah, for Paul Nichols, yeah. I'm the same as you. I never backed. I fancied. There was actually a horse of Willie Mullins that I fancied actually for the Great Wood, Janadil or something he was called, and he never ran. And then I went on to Harambe, and I never backed him. I'm absolutely sick that I didn't think he was. I thought he was more of a Coral Cup horse to Harambe, and then he's after blowing his handicap marker now for the Coral Cup, and he won the Great Wood the weekend. I'd looking at this race as well. Yeah, I know what you're saying about the Banner King Rebel. Yeah, Fred is in there. I see it as well. Yeah, but I wouldn't disagree with you with the Balinska. But you know, you mentioned there Redford Raid, same kind of colour, same owners as is it Baliendi? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be more towards him. You know, going around. You know, I'm only just going on owner there. Really, to be honest with you, they like to target these races early. You know, Twiston Davis gets these horses out and gets them winning. Like this horse could end up in a 2 mile novice in January in Cheltenham. Like, you kind of looked at the bigger picture to see, will this horse run it? With Twiston Davis seems to put these horses in these tracks and then move them then to Cheltenham. So I suppose if it was for me looking at the entries here, I'd be Redford Road. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And the only thing with that is just because of the fact they've got the jockey bookings up, it looks like they're going to run Torn and Frayed here, the Twiston Davis. It's obviously not definite. But that's where that Redford Road's going to be running in one of those hurdles over at Ascot. So I agree with you that I think the form of Kilteardy Briggs ties in really nicely. So he'd be one back over at Ascot. Wherever he runs this weekend, I'd be interested. And like you say, the fact that Twiston Davis likes to chuck these horses into these types of races, he's not entered in a listed race just for the fun of it, is he? He's obviously entered in there because he's got some ability. So yeah, I'd have to agree with that. But I think just the way that I think the race is going to shape up and the way it's going to go, I think Balinska will definitely run it. And I could be tempted to have a good bet on him. The only thing with it is he's an ex-winning pointer, and it is over 2 miles. He won his point on good ground. He won his novice Ludlow on good ground. That would be the only slight of air of caution. But like with all of it, I'm sure you're exactly the same. We pick a horse that we fancy. If the bookies price it up the right price, we'll get stuck in. If the bookies are on to us, then you can't get stuck in, can you?
No, definitely not. No, definitely.
So I think for the last of the novice hurdles for the Saturday, we've got to go back to Ascot again. So you can see there's no pattern to the way that I'm doing this. The first race at Ascot is this is a 2 mile, 5.5 furlong. So it's a long enough race. Redford Road again has got another entry that's in here. I think the fact that he ran and stayed on the last day so well, he's probably going to come here. As I say, the only slight niggle is with Sam Twiston Davis running at Haydock. It just worries me slightly because you're going to want to go and ride the horses that have probably got the best chances or who are the better horses. So slight niggle about that. The Grand Mogul's entered here again. Prince Llewellyn's entered here again. But there is one that it's ridiculous. I'm actually a bit embarrassed that I'm even saying this, but there's one that stands out like a sore thumb in this particular race. So the 12:20 at Ascot. Nicky Henderson's got a load lined up. Munir and Suede have got loads of, 3 of them entered up as well. If Valtor runs here, surely he absolutely hacks up the 10-year-old.
I knew you were going to say that. I was looking at him earlier and I was saying exactly the same thing. I said, if this horse runs, this should win by half the track. So is it the case he'll go out in front, catch him if you can, and nothing will beat him? Like look on here on the entries, it looks desperate. Yeah,
and that's quite a sad state of affairs, really, isn't it? Because like we were saying earlier, we've got the Betfair Chase, biggest race of the weekend, start of the Triple Crown. We're going to have probably a 4-runner race and probably only one horse that's going to win it, maybe one that could challenge. We've got the Christie Chase, where obviously it's great that we've got the matchup of the 2 of them, but again, it's going to be another small field. And then we've got a number of novice hurdles that are available to run in, and no one wants to come and run in them. The thing is, the ground as well, it looks like probably Ascot and Haydock are both going to be around about the same. They'll be around about good to soft. I don't know what more these trainers want. Maybe they haven't got the horses to run in them, but it's ridiculous. It is a stupid thing to say, but it's one of them. If Valtor, because of the fact that he is 150 odd rated, he might not be as good as that, but he's definitely a 140s horse. He is a 10-year-old. But if he went and hacked up and you haven't backed him, you feel like a mug, didn't you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. He just one that stood out there when you were going through it, and I went through it earlier on. I said, if Valtor runs, this horse should shoot him, because the rest of them don't look great for the time of year anyway.
No, that's it. So, the Prince Llewellyn that I mentioned and then Grand Mogul that are entered on the Friday, they've both got an entry in here. That Kim Bailey one's the Prince Llewellyn one, so I'll be interested whichever way he went, but I prefer him to go for the shorter trip on the Friday. I think that's the lot of them for the novice hurdles. I'm just going to skip onto the bumper at Ascot because this is it's got one horse in here. So now I know the Irish are obviously it's like a conveyor belt of brilliant bumper horses, but I haven't been as impressed with a bumper horse I can't even really remember, to be honest. Well, other than when Q Card won the actual champion bumper, but Kid Commando for Anthony Honeyball. Did you see how he won?
Yeah, and fun with the last day, wasn't it? Yeah, he looked good. Yeah, looked good. But what did he beat?
Well, correct. It's that thing about lack of depth, isn't it? So he'll be running with a penalty at Ascot. I'd be very disappointed if they didn't run him in there because it's an opportunity to test the water. There is the listed bumper back at Ascot on that long walk hurdle meeting, so surely he's got to be coming back and he's having a run round here to try for that. Talking about that listed hurdle bumper, Nick Gifford won that a couple of years ago with Did They Leave You Out Too? He's got one in here, El Tornado. I think Nick Gifford's, he doesn't get a load of winners, but he does so well with his bumper horses. It's his highest strike rate. I think it's about 20%. He's had a couple of winners this week from a handful of runners that have gone out, so he'd be one that'd be very interesting running in here. But we've also got Brave Man's Game of Paul Nicholls. That was a big money purchase, ex-winning pointer. We've got Scatman, which was a big money purchase, ex-winning pointer for Paul Nicholls. And then one for Tom Lacey, which we've touched on him a little bit before, but he came out for a couple of previews at the beginning of the season saying which was his horse to follow. And he talked about this Tyus Tour. It came fifth at a bumper. It was crap really, but you'd have to think there's more to come from him than he showed that day. It is just the sort of form, like the form of the yard. I might be reading too much into it, but I just don't think any of them are running as well as they probably can. But that bumper looks like it could be quite decent. Is there any of the maybe of the 2X pointers, the Paul Nicholls ones, Brave Man's Game, Scatman? You got any thoughts on either of those?
Not really. The one that you said there that stood out was the Gifford one because of the thing with don't leave you out or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
You see JP McManus horse and he sends Nick Gifford. He seems to always run him in an Ascot bumper. You normally say, oh, he's no chance to be trained by Nick Gifford, but they seem to win. They always seem to be there and thereabouts when he brings them to Ascot. So what's the name? L something, isn't it?
Yeah, El Tornado. And the good thing about him potentially is that Kid Commando was so visually impressive in his bumper. Even though that Kid Commando's been carrying the penalty, it's very likely that he's going to be priced up quite short for this. If Nicholls runs either of his two big money X-point purchases, they'll probably be shorter in the market than they should be. So it might end up being the case that you could get a price on this El Tornado. And if there's enough runners, I mean, I don't do it, but you probably could be getting a bet to nothing. He's probably going to be 5-6 to 1 in the race, I suspect.
Yeah. If Kid Commando runs, I suppose what'll he be? 2 to 1, 9 to 4 shot with the penalty. Really? But especially if there's a lot of running, if you get 15. Normally, you get about 14 runners in these races at this time of year.
Yeah.
So you'll probably get 9 to 4, 5 to 2 on the Kid Commando, and you'll probably get 5 to 1 the rest of the field. So, like, if you have good breeding and you see money for one horse, you'll probably back it before he gets to a stupid price. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we could have one in there. There's a couple of other bumpers. There's one at Huntingdon as well. There's the Mayor's bumper at Navan we didn't talk on. So there's Big Bad and Beautiful for Gordon Elliott's in there. Is it the Great Getaway or the Great Getaway? The Big Getaway.
Yeah, the Getaway, was it the Getaway Star or the Great Getaway? One or the other. Yeah, they want to Cork. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not a massive fan of the Mares full stop, to be honest. No. You can sometimes read a little bit too much into them. But there is one, the Minear and Suede Flying Risk, that's been entered up tons over the last few weeks. They never have runners in bumpers. So I don't know why they keep entering in bumpers. It had a novice hurdle entry after it was pulled out of its first bumper. So I thought, this is the time to get stuck into it. But now they keep looking at bumpers again. Could be reading into something that's not really there, but they seem to be looking really keen to try and win a bumper with her.
Yeah.
So she'd be interesting.
Just getting back there to I just have a piece there on this Brave Man's Game.
Yeah.
Paul Nicholls said he's a lovely big horse and money's only point to point for Donica Doyle by 8 lengths. And he was bought in at the Cheltenham Festival, said. He's saying here he was the highest rated 4-year-old pointer in Ireland last season, so that might be something to go on.
And that's the thing. You get some of these. I remember there was a few years ago. Obviously, when Neon Wolf came out, he was so good. Should have won a Ballymore. And then when Slate House came out the year after, a couple of guys that sent me some stuff on Point to Point said he was one of the fastest things they'd seen on the clock. Like when you put it into relation to the track, all those sorts of things on the going. And then he turned out to be pretty good as a novice hurdler. So yeah, Brave Man's Game definitely is one of Nicholls that I'm quite excited to see go out. The only thing with Nicholls is the fact that all of his horses have looked desperate for a run.
Yeah.
And I don't like to always use that as like a blanket statement about his horses, because at some point they're probably going to hit a bit of form, and sometimes at some point they're going to have started working. But he does get winners in bumpers, but you wouldn't particularly like notoriously say that he's bought an X-pointer that's won over 3 miles over fences, and then you can fancy it in a bumper. But you are right; it was a very highly rated pointer, and that's what I mean. Maybe if we could take him on in that bumper, we might get a price or something else. But the table's got to turn at some point for Paul Nicholls. He's got to start getting winners again, hasn't he?
But Paul Nicholls, I think, is still sick that he bought Alpha out of Ireland to win a bumper, and no one considered Q Card. It looked like look how they ended up both and being great horses down the line. Do you know what I mean? He bought Alpha specifically for the bumper, and he hasn't seemed to buy a horse since for a bumper.
Yeah, that's it. And he's always been like, more so in the last few seasons as well. He's got back to the case that he is just training these novice or these stay-in chases long term, and he's obviously is so good at it. The point horses he's buying, that's obviously the model he's going for. So he doesn't really want to rush him, does he? But you are right; it was a very good pointer, and potentially could be one for the Saturday. So I reckon we've waffled on for long enough now, Jamie. Was there anything else for this week coming up on the weekend?
I suppose if you look at it, Thurles on
the Thursday.
Yeah, you have Lorena's entered up in a Mayor's Beginner's Chase. You have one of my guilty pleasures is running in a I think a 2 mile 6 conditions chase, Footpad. I think he's going to run here on Thursday because Willie Mullen said he's going to step up and trip. I'd like to see what price Footpad is. Depends on all depends, as you say, if Altior wins now the weekend. I'd like to see what price Footpad is for King George. I think it'll suit him down to the ground. Is he good enough anymore? That's a good question. And you said something about a Jethead horse or something,
January Jets in the bumper.
Yeah, there's a horse of Willie Mullins in that I like. He's called. I've been waiting for this horse for a long time.
Styrian Furlong.
Styrian Furlong, yeah, the same colours as the Big Getaway in Album Polo. You were saying when this horse came to Willie Mullins, it was an absolute aeroplane. That's the quotes I was getting a couple of months ago, a couple of years ago, I should say. So I'd be more interested in him. But you know yourself in a bumper. If Willie Mullins has a horse, he'll be 4-7, and that jumping Jethead will be probably 4-1. And you're getting more value on the jumping Jethead. So
that's it.
Because
I backed Asteria Forlonge last season for the bumper. I won't be backing it for the bumper this year because I suspect it will run in this and it probably will go over. Wouldn't be 100% sure. I think Gordon Elliott's got an X-pointer in there, Mr. Lingo, that hasn't been seen for about 3 years. But that's still only a 6-year-old. It could end up being a half-decent bumper if they all turn up. The January Jets one, because it's with Jesse Harrington, where we were talking about Paul Nicholls, some of the horses tend to need a run. I think Jessica Harrington's one of those that they don't really get their fitness until they start racing. So that could be a line in with it. But you are right. Asteria Forlonge in that race will be odds on, will he? That's probably why I'll end up getting tempted to back this January Jets because I think his points form's working out quite nicely. But I've just said myself there, it'll probably need the run, won't it?
Yeah. The other one, I suppose, you go on to Saturday, Gorham Park. You have a maiden hurdle. And I know his form tailed off last year, but Mount Leinster, I'm like, looking at his form behind the good horses like Malone Road and Envoyel, and he's running all the good bumpers last year, and it doesn't seem to be a great maiden hurdle.
No.
So he'd be win for me. And then the 2:10 at Goran, there's another one of my guilty pleasures, Get a Bird.
Yes.
Is running in the 2. I think he'll win. No matter, he needs to go right-handed. It's as simple as that. He needs to go right-handed. He's not a 3-miler. He tried that last year. He doesn't look a 2-miler to me. 2.5 miles look at his trip, and I think he'll win.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that because I think he's got Mengley Khan's in there, so officially rated higher than Get a Bird, but Get a Bird would smash him. Paloma Blue's in there, can't really jump.
Yeah.
And then there's the rest of them don't look too good, do they? So that'll be another one that'll be interesting to see what sort of price they put it up. But I'd have to agree. 2.5 miles right-handed, Get a Bird hacks up. The problem with a horse like him is he's only rated 150 at the minute. Is what are they going to do with him for targets? Because he's running in this particular race because it's not a graded race, so they're not going to. Well, they probably wouldn't even want to stick him in a grade 3 at the minute. They wouldn't want to stick him in a handicap. I don't think he'd want to be stuck in with a big field, and you wouldn't want him going off a bit hell for leather. So it'll be interesting to see how he does get on in this race. I agree with you. I think he'll hack up. I'd like to know what they'll do with him after.
he looks like he'll be. There's a race in January always in Thurles, called Kinloch Bray. That's the type of race that he'll be running in all year. Like he's not going to be running in Grade 1 because it's all left-handed. But Willie Mullins will try it. He tried it with what was that good horse he had here, Arbica Legionnaire. That horse had to go right-handed, and then he tried and they just doesn't seem to want to go left-handed.
No.
But I think he'll give him one more go at left-handed. Willie Mullins can't help it. He's Willie Mullins. But I suppose if you look at it, it's only going to be Gordon Park. I think he might. I might be wrong, and this is just a wild guess. If he's going to have another go at 3 miles at Gettysburg, he might run him in the Tayestes, something for down the line in January. That could be the race for him. But at the moment, you can't really see him like Saturday going, maybe back for the Tayestes. But that Kinloch Bray in Thurles in January is probably one of his targets for the year.
Yeah, I think it was because I backed Gettysburg for the bumper when he didn't come over, did he, for the bumper in the end? And I ended up backing another Willie Mullins horse that didn't come over again. But it was, I'm pretty sure it was at Gowran Park where he beat Hardline, but I don't think he beat him by much. He was I think he was giving some weight away as well, but it was massive odds on. He looked like a bit of a roguey horse then, and obviously it's transpired that he's a bit of a head case. So when we touched on earlier about Brecon and the fact that I quite like a bit of a nutcase, I'm the same as you. Got a soft spot for Gettysburg, right-handed. The good thing with this will be that the bookies they'll do us a favour one way or the other. If they give us a price on him, we'll get stuck in. If they price him up, I'd say anything shorter than 6-4, I wouldn't be interested in playing him. So I probably wouldn't be getting stuck in. But typically, especially for the weekend racing, when there's so much stuff going on, these bookmakers that employ their odds compilers, some weekends they must have some junior apprentice in, because Bet365 is the worst for it. We've seen horses priced up the other day. There was one that was 33-1 they priced up, and it was 7-1 top price anywhere else. They priced up a horse that opened up 1-2 with Betfair at 8-1. They're balmy with it. So they're not going to do that with something like a Gettysburg, but I would suspect that given the fact that there's a couple of other names that might run in there, they might lure us in. And like I say, if they don't, they make him short odds on, then we won't be backing him anyway, probably.
Yeah. And I suppose the one we said at the start of the Richard was the Troytown at Navan.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the handicap. Forgot about that on the Sunday.
Yeah, I've two for that. It's the two McManus's ones. I was reading a quote that Anthony Howard said about the Excelling King horse that he had, that Winterscape might finally get a trip.
Oh yeah.
3 miles. I can't see it myself. I'm more interested in, I suppose, a horse that doesn't seem like to win, but I think he's crying out for 3 miles. It's Tower Bridge.
Yeah.
If you stop back the race the last day that Tornado Flare won, how Mark Walsh never got banned for looking around and see how far or how behind he was in front of the horses, behind the horses, I should say. He did everything in his power without looking bad to hold the horses. He's good for a handicap mark. I know he has a handicap mark, but it looked like he had a bigger target than a beginner's chase. And for me, I think this horse is crying over 3 miles. If you watch that race again, you'll see what I'm talking about. At the second last, he looked like he was going to stay on and win. And also Mark Watts looked like, so the stewards couldn't see that he put on the brakes. I think anyway, and I think this horse just crying up for 3 miles, and I think he'll win.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I felt, in case Mark Walsh is watching, which obviously he's not, I think it was JJ Slevin that's been riding him, because he rode him at Cheltenham when a Plutard, the handicap block, bolted up, and he was the second best between all of them. It's funny. Well, that Tornado Flare, I remember I watched it as well, and I thought exactly the same. There are so many of these McManus horses. He's the biggest player in the game, isn't he? We've got hundreds of horses. We're going to lose Gigginstown. Again, they're not rewatching, but the Irish Racing Board and the British Horse Racing Association, they can see this stuff's going on left, right, and centre. Yeah. We're watching lots of racing, so we're picking up on it. Then fair enough. The question always is whether today's the day. We'll never know that sort of stuff. There is a guy I've been speaking to recently that's been he's dedicated like the last 5 years to try and work out McManus handicap jobs. So he looks at the races, he sees who's going for a mark and tries to pick a few out. And he has a really impressive strike rate at the minute. He sent me 12 of them, and 8 of the 12 have won, and the shortest price one was a 10-1 shot we managed to back it at. So If Tower Bridge is
But
one that he sends over that fits the bill for his little plot job, then we'll stick that up.
if you look at last year, right? If you look at the 3 mile, no, I can't complain because I thought he was the handicap plot of the year. Was in the per temps was Sire de Burley.
Yeah.
If you look at the race at Leopardstown back, right, you'll see Davy Russell was in about 10th or 11th, jumping the second lap, and all of a sudden then he realised, oh shit, wait, I'm in the wrong position, and absolutely killed the horse to finish 6th. And you thought, there you go.
Yeah.
And then the other one was that horse that won twice at Galway. He did. I like the way you're thinking. I think is the name of the horse, right?
Yeah.
If you watch the lads there on what's it, Up in the Ante, Gavin Lynch and David Jennings. If you watch those programs, even Gavin Lynch copped it, saying this horse is a handicap plot. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they're just pulling the horse, like.
Yeah.
So if they know how much more did like if those two boys know how much more do they know with the handicap plots they have.
And that's it, isn't it? So, but the difficult thing with all of it is knowing whether they're going to run. The interesting thing when you mentioned about Winter Escape as well, he's a horse that I quite like. I don't think things obviously went very well at Alan King's, and that might be enough to put this horse in jeopardy. But officially rated £8 higher, I think, than Tower Bridge. So again, it's one of those things. Maybe him running in the race is part of the plan. Gets the weight down, get another claim on all those sorts of things. The one horse, without doubt, that cannot run in the Troy Town Chase is Discorama. Even though he's being nibbled now, I want Paul Nolan to send him over to the Ladbroke Trophy. I think he looks like he's got a proper chance in that. He lost one today, Paul Nolan, the mare in the mare's novice hurdle. She was the one that ran behind Manila Melody. She looked like, the form of that Larke Boost run last time. She could have had a real good chance today, so that's a shame. He's got a few nice little novice hurdlers at the moment, and then it's something like a Discorama that just ran so well last season. Looks like he was going to be one for the 4 miler. Looks like he's completely and utterly made for something like the Ladbroke Trophy. Now, I know the Troy Town Handicap Chase is something that you probably do want to go and win. Gordon Elliott's been talking about Raven Hill for a little while for a few handicaps, so he's going to be interested in him having a chance, I think, this weekend. But yeah, Discorama will be winning races soon. I just hope that he doesn't run here.
Funny you mentioned that Raven Hill. I'm 20 minutes away from the Listowel racecourse, and I think he had his chance that day. I think Dennis O'Regan gave him a bad ride that day in Listowel. And poker whatever. I think won that race.
Poker party, yeah.
Poker party, yeah. Well, I was on Shantou Village that day. I'm still sick about that. Robbie Power, what was he doing? I never did it as well. But no, I thought Raven Hill was given a bad ride in the Kerry National. But I think this track will suit him better, all right, than having longer straight, bigger hill. But I think he could be handicapped out of it now. There's too many better handicap horses in the race, I think.
That's it, yeah, because he went up £5 for that. But yeah, I was the same as you. I was on Shantou Village. So realistically, Dennis O'Regan didn't give him that bad a ride, did he? Because Robbie Power gave the worst ride you'll ever see. Shantou Village is one of those I've had a bit of a soft spot for. He looked well in for it. He went off a big price anyway, but yeah, I think I must have got him at 20s the day before, the night before, or something like that. But he was there to win, wasn't he? I don't know why Puppy Power waited so long. You should have sent him on earlier, shouldn't he?
I should have, yeah. And I was in the stands, and I was like, what is he doing? Like, it's not like the Stones as I consider like a greyhound track. It's like Worcester, right? It's just only a little big long ring and a big 2 long side rings of the track, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, like, and what was he doing? It's a short running and everything. There's only 2 fences within about 100 yards from each other, and he just stopped the horse going into the fence. I was like, oh, what's he doing? I think I nearly went over the rail and said, what are you doing? Like,
it's a killer, isn't it? And it's been one of those things, especially when we look at the handicaps, because I'll have a bet in a handicap every now and again when I think I see something that's well in there. You can get some really, really good value in the handicaps, but some of these races, they just do your head in, because something like there for Shantou Village, that was his chance to go and win at a price. Like you say, Raven Hill, that was probably his chance to go and win a race, especially with something like that falling. So a lot of these horses in the handicaps, you only really get the one chance. You've got everything to fall right. A few of them will be trying. It's the same, something like Slate House for the weekend, the Bet Victor Gold Cup. I mean, he would have won. The fact that he fell, like sort of crumpled on landing, maybe he was more tired than he looks, but he's gone up another £6 for that. And you just think, you're kind of ruining horses. He went up £12 for the win before that. Got up another £6. He got up £18 in those 2 runs. The only option they're going to have now is to stick him into graded company, and the fact that he's I don't know. I just think sometimes the handicapping system can be a little bit harsh, but hey ho.
But
that's where the jockeys have to play the system, I guess.
yeah, I backed him on Saturday, Slade House, and his best jump, if you look at it, his actually best jump was the second last. He just not landing. He was just unlucky. But to make up that ground he did the last day, you wouldn't say. Now, he might run the Caspian Caviar right in December. More galloping track would probably suit him, the newer track. But, like, he looks like now he's going to be handicapped out of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've never seen a horse around Cheltenham in a 2.5 mile handicap make so many mistakes. And he jumped second last in front.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about that was because I was obviously at Cheltenham there. Me and my dad always go into the Sentinel to watch one of the races, and he wanted to go in there to watch that one. So rather than listening to the racecourse commentary, we were listening to Richard Hoyles. Yeah. And it's just hilarious listening to him commentate on certain races because he's got it in for certain horses. Slate House wasn't great, but everything every fence, whatever Slate House did, he made a comment. Oh, Slate House wasn't very good there. Slate House wasn't quickening. And then I could just see Robbie Power just going through, just stalking, thinking he's going to come up, he's going to win this. So I reckon Richard always probably breathed a little sigh of relief when he didn't come through and go and win it. But yeah, I just feel sorry for him. The fact that he's gone up again, it's hard for those types of horses, especially considering he's had his problems as a novice hurdler anyway. He's finally got himself into a position where he's in the chance for winning races, and then they get slapped on those sort of marks. But hey, that's the game, isn't it? So I reckon we've covered pretty much all the action then.
There's one thing there which just caught my eye there now, actually, with the sales with the Gigginstown, right?
Yeah.
They always keep mentioning these big handicaps. There's a horse called Princess Scars.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of very interesting, and he's actually been bought by Mr. Munir and Mr. Swade.
Really?
Yeah, I see it here. Yeah, it's came up here there on my tracker, and they said Munir and Swade own it now. So it could be interesting where they go down the line with him. But to be honest with you, I still think it's between Tower Bridge and Winter's Gate for that right on it.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that had happened either. So I remember Prince of Scars. He was a fairly decent hurdler, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Then I'm pretty sure he ran against Thistlecrack in a chase, and I'm pretty sure because I was anti Thistlecrack when he went chasing. I shouldn't have been, but I was. I think I backed Prince of Scars then. So he's quite old, isn't he? 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's an interesting sale. They must be thinking about something with him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So look, no, but as I say, you're better off going for the horses that really haven't been like the only thing with Winter's Gate and Tower Bridge, they form like last year. Winter's Gate beat a Plutar in a race at Punchestown, and then like Tower Bridge has formed behind a Plutar. Now this Plutar is going to end up in a Ryanair, so these horses must be well handicapped if they were beaten by one beat a Plutar and the other one was beaten absolutely stuffed at the Cheltenham Festival by a Plutar. Tower Bridge was. They must be well handicapped.
Yeah. That's it, and it's always just the air of caution. We don't know who's actually going to run. So even this far out, if you get a confirmation of a horse that's going to run in the Troy Town, sometimes it's worth nibbling a bit of value. And then if it is all the JP horses, which one of them is going to have the button push that day?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on to do this, Jamie. It's really good to see you. Obviously, got such a passion for the horse racing. Know what you're talking about as well, which always helps. I'm going to be getting these done weekly now over Christmas, and then I'll probably carry one into Cheltenham as well. So you're more than welcome to come on again whenever you've got the time.